very honored to be here, but I have to share a story about my leg. And the word, yeah, jy lag nou vir my. Yes, it's a story I have to tell because it's really showing my stupidity. But the story sort of goes, I was at this party with this handsome young man with the blue eyes and the blonde hair, and the party really got wild. And toe daar alles hande uitgeruk en then I broke my leg in 3 places. That's partially true. The young man is my 4-year-old grandson with blue eyes, and he had this spring costume, you know, this birthday costume. It was about 1.5 story high, and he comes and he says, "Come, Oma, it's awesome." And then I realized the peer pressure one has to sort of deal with, and so I got onto this, and guess what? I jumped off and did spring and miss. And I've been in hospital, was in hospital for more than a week, and it broke in 3 places. And he sort of says to me, "Get up, we must go again." And I said to him, "But I can't move." And he sort of, "My jy's nie oud nie, you're not old." So I have to tell you that story because it sort of shows the one side of total stupidity versus a very highly scientific research I've just done. So please forgive me. My grandmother said to me, "My dear, always remember, men are always wise." So I've got a deep respect for men. Really, I do. I'm not a woman's liver. Because they've a sort of way of thinking, critical thinking. And then she would put her tongue in her cheek and then she will say, "My dear, once you know that, it leaves us as women enough space to be otherwise." So I hope I have and I'm going to bring to you a wise and an otherwise a way of actually thinking. This was presented on TED Talks. It's going to be released now very shortly, and I'm really going to give you just an extract on this, and it's going to be like this, but I hope what you take with is really going to be powerful because it touches on everything. It touches on DNA, something we never talk about in leadership development and human potential development and community development. The potential means power on whole, and the other is for authentic leaders to emerge that I will really hopefully throw the whole apple cart around. So while you're just there, maybe just in your notebooks, just draw a line and put there the age of 80. What would you like to see at the age of 80 in your life? What would you like to see for your future? You see, we're so busy with things here and now that the foundations we lay now in the end takes us where we would like to go. So, right, just imagine the future. And this is what we really have a problem with. I've been a private practice psychologist for 35 years. I retired at the end of last year because people are struggling with what they don't want instead of creating what they should or do want, and they're wasting energy, and then they do not get where they want to go. So let's just have a look. If you imagine your future, a future that's happy, one where you are healthy, and if I say wealthy, that you are financially taken care of. This is what our bankings are all about. Where you have your family and your loved ones around you, where you live in a secure place, where you are safe, and where you can actually just enjoy life. Now, people are actually focusing on that at the age of 80, but I want to show you a little piece that we can create it immediately, starting from this moment. Now, most people have this vision. Do you agree on that? This is what people would really want, and this is what would make them happy. But what has happened is that we're sitting with the disappointment and the disillusionment, meaning that all over the world we have poverty and we have war and we have conflicts and we've got all this interaction between people actually resisting what we don't want, but not creating what we do want. And the first point is this has to stop. The next is who stops this? And I would say our leaders need to stop this. But now I need to give another term to leaders. leaders are not always people in powerful positions. And I'll tell you why. People are not always, they are the influencers who can go out and actually stop this downward spiral. So why am I saying this? I've got a lot of those little papiertjies against the wall and the academic records. I've got them. And I've also got the otherwise side that will fall off a jumping castle as well. So there's a wise and an otherwise side to this. Because the International Leadership Conference in Belgium had its title, Leadership for a World in Turmoil. Doesn't that sound crazy? Because if people were doing the right things and putting the right leaders in place, you wouldn't have a title in turmoil. Meaning that our leaders and the way many of our leaders think are creating this dilemma that we actually don't want. So the next question is, we need to get to a point to time out and ask ourselves, so what's the real problem? And the real problem is a very interesting thing, is because we are struggling with the symptoms of something where the original problem is totally in a different position. And while we treat the symptoms and while we do all these wonderful fancy things, the underlying real issues still remain and we still struggle. And without us knowing this, we actually then create a world that we still don't want in the end. Now just imagine for a moment, all the electricity went off. You didn't get for today one WhatsApp, one SMS. Your cell phone would be down and all the technology. Yeah, I think
I'm waiting for
it. How would you do your business? Because technology all runs on this. Meaning that we have built a reality and a world on being fundamentally, electronically, and also technology connected. Are you all with me on this? And it goes still further that if you're not on Facebook, then you have to get a LinkedIn profile and you must get these connections. And now I'm coming to say, just stop it for a moment and take time out. We need a little bit of to recalculate, because we need to get to the original problem. And we have to just imagine that if everything that we use to communicate and to connect went down, what it would do to your business and also your social and your personal life if it was down. So I would like to tell you about my wake-up call and my story in one word. Oh yes. My wake-up call happened in 2000. I was a lecturer with an Harvard professorate at leading universities, business schools, and what happened is I had this amazing big practice, academic career, professionally okay, financially okay, and I landed in a motor car accident and fractured my neck. And because of this, I just put that in that you would realize that my screws are not loose. They're not loose. It's a joke for my sons. I'll explain that to you. And what happened is I had to leave the world that I was building at that stage. And I was in bed for nearly a year, 8 months it took me to start walking again. And in that process, I needed to take a deep breath and start time out and recalculating. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this that you don't have to go through this wake-up call. Just learn from my story and then just take it from there. And in this stage, I realized I've got a BSc degree in quantum physics. I studied initially as a medical doctor. I registered as a psychologist, worked in organizational psychology, and I took all of this and just put it to one side and said, show me what works. So what happened is, after I recuperated, I went back to university and they were busy with the leadership training program, and it was perspectives on leadership. And then I realized that was the problem. We're looking at different things at different angles and we do not get to the truth. and the authenticity of what it is we should be doing to create this future that we would all like to have. And at that point, I realized I couldn't go with the academic world anymore. The leadership development and coaching and mentoring is a multi-billion-dollar business. And people have developed all these wonderful programs, and I don't say there's anything wrong with them, but it doesn't get to the basic levels that we need to lay a whole new foundation. So what happened is I realized I needed to get up and get out and let go of my whole comfort zone, academically, professionally, and also financially. And the reason I did it, these are my 4 sons. And they are the epitome of what I think our young people should be in the future. Strong leaders, standing up, working hard, setting examples. And I said to them, listen, this is going to be quite a problem that we're going to have. What do you guys say? And they all said to me, go for it, Mom. We are standing behind you. And it's taken me the best of 8 to 10 years to bring you in 3 minutes what the problem is and how to solve it. Would you like to hear that?
Yeah.
Having a background in genetics and a medical background, I came to realize that we have a DNA blueprint of what success and life and living is all about. It's DNA is a microchip we've all been issued with by a creator. You think by your mother and father? No, they just provided your container. It's a microchip, and it works functionally like a hard drive.
Yeah.
And that hard drive has all the information that you need to make a personal success out of your life. So if you can think you are living your full potential, and I'm living my full potential, and we take hands, then we can start creating the future that we would like to see. So, if this is the issue, what is the problem? The problem is that we only saw DNA functioning as just a physical issue. In other words, your color of your hair, or the length and the height, or the skin color, or what have you. But what happened is, and I'll show you now, during the time I was in bed recuperating from my neck fracture, there was an international genome project asking what would the whole human genome blueprint look like if we laid it out as a, and let's put it very academically and non-scientifically, as a DNA blueprint. And it actually happened that they found many solutions for many illnesses. But what also was found is that we have a DNA that can also our thoughts, our emotions, and our belief systems. And suddenly the whole thing of DNA, that it's fixed, has sort of fallen away and opened a whole new view that we can tap into our personal and collective potential right down to the blueprint on a DNA level. Now, if you ever want to talk about technology, this is the technology for the future. Now, what was very important is that emotions and value systems can actually change our DNA. But if you've got the right skills and tools, you can also upgrade your DNA just like you upgrade your cell phone. And this is now where we are moving, because the problem is we became disconnected from this whole DNA blueprint of ours. And you can think that we've been living and struggling with this, and it's been handed down from generation to generation, up to a point that we've got these wonderful ideas and thoughts and creative thinking. But when we see where the tacky literally hits the top, things aren't always as it should be. And I would like to say is that we have, and this is now a formal academic title, people have what they call a connection or an attachment deficit. not only disconnected within self, or disconnected within the universe, but also disconnected with each other. So we make up for this with certain kind of things. If I wear the right clothes and I drive the car and I've got the money and I'm on Facebook and I've got thousands of followers, then I'm sort of okay. It's not true. It just means that I'm solving my disconnection by thinking and making believe that there are other people. I don't know how many people do you guys have on your Facebook page that you don't even know or never talk to. I always post photos of my grandchildren. I pasted one when I fell off the Jacqueline Castle, and everybody said, oh, shame that I didn't post it on my professional profile, because then they will say, really, woman, what are you doing on this? So what is very important is that everything we need is already encoded into the DNA blueprint, but we became disconnected. Now, Nelson Mandela emerged from very difficult circumstances, and he stood up not only for himself, culture, the country, but also globally as a leader. And he said that man's goodness can be hidden but not extinguished. So here is somebody that went through difficult situations where this whole blueprint actually started to reconnect in 28 years in isolation. And there was no MBA, there was no leadership training, there were no books, there were no Facebook, there was nothing. It was just Nelson Mandela with Nelson Mandela. So what happened? He went inside and he said when he came out, we have actually all got this wonderful potential. But what happened is we've now got two sides of self. We've got a connected self that is connected to this, but then we've got a disconnected self. And this connected self has created a false image of what power and success and of whom I am. We put up, the makeup and the clothes and the titles. That's why I've taken everything off. And this part of self is an ego self that comes from disconnected fear, anger, and also unhappiness. And can you see what is actually really the fundamental driving force at a deep level, where not only personal lives are concerned, but also where our businesses and our cultures are concerned. So this shadow ego self is just an illusion. Now I wonder why we are sitting here. How many of you know what your shadow ego self looks like? Because I want to show you mine. I even gave her a name. Her name's Elaine. You see? Because the moment you start talking about this, then people say, wow, I want to go out there and prove I'm doing all these wonderful things. But please don't look inside, because you're going to see the hurt little boy and the broken little girl and the resentments and the fear and the anger and everything that is there. But if we don't start there, then we won't be able to lay a foundation. But if we do start there and we lay the foundation, then we can create the future in a connected, centered, grounded, focused way that really creates the reality that we all want. So this is my shadow ego self. Her name's Elaine. And every time something goes wrong, and I say, Elaine, what have you done? Where are you coming from again? And the moment I met her, I realized that Elaine was coming from pain. As a tiny little girl, she was bullied at school. I come from an Afrikaans father, an English mother. I had a North Sotho nanny in an apartheid system. And I was a whitey. I mean, I had all that kind of traumatic experience. And the thing I said to myself, I will rise above this, and I will rise above being bullied. But knowing that part of yourself and bringing that part of yourself to the fore and actually healing it, also connected deeper parts of the potential right down to a DNA level. And you know what happens is, right down to a DNA level, it actually starts stopping the aging process. So I stood up and I took back my power from hurt, pain, and wherever you've invested it, and started it reinvesting and reconnecting it. And this is the story I am actually bringing to you. Because if you have, and you can identify the blueprint for your future, then you can start creating it instead of struggle and all the stress and the strain and the finances and the health issues. You can take it step for step and work through this step for step. Now, what we have learned now from the Genome Project is that DNA is not static. We have what we call gene jumping, and we've got genetic migrations, and we've got clock genes. Let me give you an example. If you take tiny children, they don't even think about certain things at a certain age. But then suddenly there's a trigger, and you go into high school and you see all these hormones running around. It was the clock genes that actually kicked in and started creating a new physical environment that influences you emotionally, mentally, but also spiritually and universally. But nobody tells you it keeps on doing this. Because if they say the middle age, it starts again and they start switching off, and then you. So it means that at a DNA level, we have become disconnected. But because of all of this, with the latest knowledge and understanding and skills and tools, it can be healed, and you can start reconnecting it. You can also. It can be reconnected, and you can take back your power and reclaim certain potential. And there is no age restriction on being happy and successful and fulfilled. So I did a whole research on age, and people that were really successful actually delivered their best work after the age of 85. So there's still a lot of space for all of us. There's hope for us. There's still a lot of hope. A wonderful thing that came along is what we call epigenetics. Epigenetics means the DNA is actually influenced by the community or the society or the environment, but I can also influence my environment. So I've just brought for you a slide of a school of fish. And the school of fish functions as one unit. How do they communicate with each other? They haven't got cell phones, they've got no Facebook, no nothing. They have a common resonance at a DNA level. So if one changes, all of them, and they function as a unit. And they function individually, but together as a unit. But now something very special is happening. Genetic migration in the human DNA is taking place. An awakening is taking place. Just picture this. If one of those little fishes changes, for what reason ever, for the good, it's got a domino effect right through the whole school of fish. To such an extent, science has actually marked that there are certain barcodes for certain schools of fishes or animals or plants. And what we are now finding is that the human race is also going through this. Now the scientists would like to say, no, it's not happening. I've spent nearly 10 years of my life to find out how to do this. And what I found, it's really not complicated. We complicate it because this is our natural state. Just imagine a company functioning with a common denominator that everybody is on the same wavelength, because this is how a school of fish actually functions. How do you think that will influence the productivity, the client service, the turnover, the financial implications of a company. How do you think that's going to work? You see, because what we are now happen in epigenetics, and this is what I've been doing for the last 2 years, top leaders are inviting me into their companies and organizations, and he says, please teach my people to take back their power and take back who they are, so that they can share it with the team, with the group, with the system, with the whole organization, because that will make us sustainable in the next season, always in the business culture. Does it make sense? Can you think what will happen if families start working this way? And if religions will start working this way, with a common denominator? If our politicians start working this way? The problem is that if we understand this, we have a responsibility to go out and make it work where I am. And that says that you and I have to make a choice, and the choice of one of two things. The one is you are a thermometer. The other is that you are a thermostat. A thermometer takes on the environment and also the heat of the environment and then reacts to that. Where a thermometer says, I set the temperature. I walk in and I set the common denominator. Nelson Mandela, without him being taught this, he actually could do this. He could walk in and he could set the tone of peace and harmony, and this is what we call authentic leadership. He didn't have terminology where this was concerned, but this is what he was basically doing. Just imagine if not only a team, an organization, a society, but the human race started functioning in this way. Do you think it would then be possible to obtain that kind of future that we all desire? Do you think it's possible? So where do we start?
Yourself.
You start with yourself. And the way you start with yourself is that you go and ask yourself, listen, shadow ego self, I think it's time you sort of come out of the cupboard. I know you've been there a long time and you've really wreaked a lot of havoc in my life, but let's just sort this out. And you know what? It's such a lot of fun. People are always protecting their egos and they don't want you to see that side. I got a joke, a little WhatsApp joke, that the friend said to me after attending one of these workshops of DNA authentic leadership. And the joke said, if you're afraid to laugh at yourself, send me a picture and I'll do it for you. You see, we have to get over the barriers and really start living in an uncomplicated way, and that starts within. And this asks for a whole new mindset and a new way of thinking. What is also important is that we've designed over the last few years very important strategic training and development master classes. This one's coming up on Saturday, of detox, detangle, redesign your life. And the most wonderful thing is that this is for individuals, companies and organizations who really have leaders who hear the next level of leadership and organizational development. Say, Brenda, coming to the company and organization, and we're taking the whole company and organization from a point. One company and organization in Nelspruit said, we've got 1,800 people in our company, so we got the city hall and did it in one day, the whole company, while the telephones were manned. That's how easy this actually can be done. So what does it ask from you and I? It just asks from you and I to say, I'm going to start with myself. Who are you prepared just to start with you? One little fish. just one little fish in the whole of the school of fish. Just taking back who you are at a DNA level and saying, listen, this is my piece of the puzzle that I actually bring to the table. This is the call to action. Each one individually, if you go out there, touch the hearts and the minds of the people. Thank you very much. And let's do this together.